Good morning, everybody. Hello. Let's get it started. This is Perrin Lovett in for the Prepper Post News, courtesy of Freedom Prepper on Wednesday, March 3rd, 2021. Hello to everybody listening to our podcast. Hello to everybody watching at YouTube. And, of course, all of our friends at the Freedom Prepper community. Let's get right into it today. There are a couple of things I saw, and I've been thinking about this, one of these at least lately. It's kind of a change of heart. So tell me what you think of this. President Joe Biden is the president of the United States of America. And, we can all, in a social justice friendly fashion, admit that that doesn't make certain people happy. And, there's those people are apt to blame Joseph Biden, who is the 46th president of the United States. But what if they're blaming him for something he really didn't have anything to do with? I've seen some of these stories. I've seen some of these speeches. I saw a quick story at one of those, fluffy alternative sites about a speech that Biden gave last week in Texas. So I went to C-SPAN and I pulled the video up and I linked to the whole thing. It's only like 8 minutes at freedomprepper.com. Watch that video, particularly watch the start. While he gets back on track and he gives a lame, run-of-the-mill politician's babble about, I guess, the winter storm, when he walks up, he walks out like he literally has no idea where he is. Misses the podium, has to be kind of directed over to it. And when he starts the speech, he starts butchering names, and these are people that he has known. And then all of a sudden, he's squinting, he's shaking, and he finally says, "What am I doing?" He takes a moment. He gets back on track, but there's something wrong. There's just something wrong. Maybe that's why Nancy wants his nukes. Maybe that's why he hasn't and probably won't give a State of the Union address. Maybe that's why when he talks anywhere, it sounds like it sounds. So what if Joe Biden, kind of like Pope Benedict XVI, is being held against his will by the dark state and forced to perform this sick, pathetic show? What if he is the victim of elder abuse? If that's true, that's as unconscionable as everything else they do. And I know the plan is to get Kamala in there sooner or later, but that's just torturing the poor man, and you can see it. So got to work on this, but I think it may be time to say free Joe Biden, and I'm legitimately serious about that. I want to know what you think about it. Poor guy. I took a still picture from the, he just looks like he's in pain. Can you imagine waking up every morning and not knowing where you are and having people, Secret Service or handlers or whoever rush in, give you some pills, get you up, put a suit on you, and shove you out in front of cameras and, give you a quick, script of what to say. Who knows what else they do to him? I would not. These are people that literally worship the devil. They invoke the names of demons in their satanic doings. They could do anything. But anyway, that was, while poor Joe was struggling horribly down in Texas, Donald Trump showed up at the CPAC confab in Orlando. This was, and unfortunately I heard too much of his speech. I guess it was Sunday evening, and I've got another link to a video of purportedly of his whole speech. I didn't listen to the whole thing. I didn't read the transcript. He talks as if we're still in October of 2020. He's talking like he's still on the campaign trail, like none of this other stuff even happened, and it's civic nationalist, baby boomer conservatism. If it was anybody else, I would say that was just pathetic and disgraceful. You know, he's done a lot. He did a lot for us. He bought us 3.5, 4 years of breathing room, and he exposed all the problems. But when the the crunch time came, leading up to, say, I don't know, January 20th, he just didn't do it. He just didn't get it done. And during his speech, he criticized all of those people who failed to act. Sorry, that was you. You were kind of it, and it didn't happen. And we can't blame you for that. I mean, this was probably too big for anybody to take down. But it's over, and that time has passed. And, CPAC, just CPAC up your bags and, boomer on out of here. It is what it is. For what it's worth, and I would say zero, absolutely nothing, the Washington Times reports that Trump is still leading the CPAC pack in the big straw poll they do. I think he had 45% of the people said he's their man for 2024. They tend to forget all the stuff, and Trump, he seems to have gotten over all of the accusations that he made, say, in his lawsuits about certain things that if they were in any way true, would preclude him or anybody else that the dark state doesn't like from ever getting elected. But we're past that, and the people are polling. I saw DeSantis was in there, Nimrata Haley. I guess this was America, not India. But yeah, anyway, meanwhile, Texas, Florida, meanwhile in Moscow, a real president was talking to real people. The leader of the free world, Vladimir Putin, had some words to say. This was to the Federal Security Service via the Kremlin. I've got a link here to a transcript of his remarks. He just lays it on the table. None of it, where am I? Who? Kamala, what? What's that? And no, we're going to win, boomer, boomer. He just goes straight in and says, hey, look, our enemies, doesn't say USSA, but our enemies are trying to contain us again for no reason. It's not going to work. We've been aware of it. We're acting on it. We're going to beat them back, and we're going to prosper while they do what they're doing. No demons here. They don't invoke Brahma or Baal or Lucifer in the Kremlin. It's God, and that's why they are winning. Anyway, let's see here. Losing. I can't blame Biden. This is a story about Biden's people, but it's Biden's handlers. They're pushing forward with everything. What they want is absolute power, and so they're hitting all the little hot button issues. One of them is reparations for slavery, which I learned was over 160 years ago. I guess I'm wrong. 160 years of freedom, what now, 60, 70 years of civil rights. Had a black president for 8 years. Quite a few black folks in Congress, in the cabinet, a lot of judges, billionaires, millionaires, actors, all over. But you would never know that. We need reparations. Forget the scores of trillions of dollars transferred since the 1960s. There'll never be enough. Here's what some cat that Biden's handlers, when they're not beating Biden, that they've appointed to study reparations. His name doesn't matter. None of these names matter. We have to start breaking down systemic racism and barriers that have held back people of color, especially African Americans, he said. We have stuff to do right now. We don't want to wait on a study. We're going to start acting now. We don't need to understand what's going on at all. We're just going to act. There will never be, when I read this, I got really convinced. This was the other change of heart that didn't make any sense to me after the fact. I read all this. I started sympathizing, Stockholming my way along, kind of like Biden. And I said, you know what? I'm going to free my slaves. And then it occurred to me, I don't have any, and never was part of this at all. Never going to be able to please certain people, certain malcontents. Never be happy. Just like Elizabeth Warren of the massacred Massachusetts Squaw Nation. She wants the great being in the sky tell Squaw tax the wealthy. She's talking about 2% wealth tax, everything you own, not your income, but your assets. 2% for people who with a net worth over, I think 50 million. Billionaires get an extra 1% tacked on for individual wealth. Individual. You know, lady, if you were talking about a wealth tax on central banks, you'd have this guy's support. He's written a plan about it. Imagine that. What's the wealth of the Federal Reserve? Well, they can just press a button and print infinite money, so it's infinite assets. We don't need infinite assets. We just need enough to pay off all the debt, just like FDR forced Americans to give the Fed their gold. Whoever runs Joe Biden's White House could order the Fed to give the gold back to the people. Go back on the gold standard, no debt. Problem solved. Pocahontas, again, it's not that she'll never be happy. I don't think she'll ever be sober. That might be her problem. I don't know. I don't care. But speaking of the Fed, I've got to switch over here. I've got a graph I've got to look at. Look at all the wealth that the Fed has, because when they buy treasuries, they issue fake money. When they press that button, that's assets. They don't exist. They're not. None of this is real. But in la la land, whatever they have is real fiat. And I've got a chart here. This is from a story from Asia Times. Deficit spending, Fed Treasury deficit purchases are at the highest level since World War II. And if you look at this chart, it covers ownership of treasuries, and it's got a little color in the chart for everybody. Federal Reserve is kind of blue. They make up the largest portion right now. This chart starts in 86 and ends last year, 2020. It was pretty much flat throughout the good old days back in back when America was America in the 80s. We had the gap accounting principle non-friendly adjustments during Bill Clinton's tenure that made it look better. That's a little dip. But again, it's a little dip from a little high, so it really balances out. Nothing compared to what happened in the 21st century. This chart from 2001 to the present tells you everything. We had in 2001, 2, 3, we had the post-dot-com bubble recession, which, by the way, the government now says never happened. Yet here it is on the chart. There's the Fed, massive purchases. It fell off. Good times were back. Bush, the war on terror, happy. Take off your shoes and your belt, underwear bomber. The Great Recession. It just spiked through the roof, and it stayed up there. Big plateau of everybody scrambling to buy fake debt and issue fake debt. It kind of fell off. It's been up and down. It's never gone back to a flat line. And then recently, it's been back up. And then 2020, when the cover up for the pre-existing up, the COVID cover up comes along, to the moon. I mean, it's not even a hockey curve. It's like a rocket launch straight up. And who knows what's going to happen. Never going to be the same. The entire 21st century has been nothing but a giant economic nightmare. But then again, what do you expect in a country that convenes its Congress under the auspices of the watchful eyes of a demon, where God is not relevant? Let's see here. Moving on. Speaking of the politics, which I'm so sick of, The Blaze had a very short little article. I could have read the whole thing, but it's pointless. The Reds, the conservatives, they're concerned about policy. This is according to some new poll. We don't know what policy is, but the Reds, they're concerned about, meat and potatoes issues. The Blues, them liberals, they're concerned about the Reds. Meanwhile, Congress is worshiping Brahma. No sense whatsoever. Here's one for the preppers, straight for the preppers, and for anybody else that wants to prepare for the unexpected. And they've got a lot more. They've got a lot more in store for us. It's just never, until it's put to an end, it will never end. 1 second after the great novel about the EMP, well, we've got the USSA Air Force preparing at an Air Force base for an EMP test to see how their systems and local utilities handle the test. We saw how local utilities handle some clouds and a few snowflakes. So I'm thinking that a well-placed EMP driver nuke would wreak havoc. I pray we never find out, but if we do, please be ready. Read that little story at NextGov. See what, yeah, it is what it is. Read that book. 1 Second After is a fantastic, a little out there, but the parts that are realistic are frighteningly realistic. Forget the technical stuff. It's the human nature that's most realistic. Frightening. But, that's what not as frightening as, praying to demons. Let's see here. Here's another story for everybody. This past year, lockdown, all the food is gone except for the processed junk food sales, frozen foods, nitrate this and that, candy bars, ice cream, all the bad food. The sales have just skyrocketed. People are eating this stuff left and right. That's all that some people are subsisting on while they sit home with nothing to do, watching the show on the TV, the big show that never ends. There's a story in The Guardian by a woman who basically almost ate herself to death. She was a junk food junkie. And it started with a piece of key lime pie, early lockdown. Why not? This will be over in 2 weeks. Flatten the curve in 2 weeks. And then a year later, after all this pie and Snickers and so forth, her doctor is telling her, you need to shape up immediately. You're going to die because her, cholesterol, all the bad numbers are through the roof. She's fat. And by the way, if you're unhealthy, well, that's how pathogens, that's one of the ways they attack you. So it's amazing that in this time of alleged international sickness, the big powers that be, the big club, they're doing everything in their power to make people as sick and susceptible to illness as possible. Absolutely nothing they won't try to do, and for the most part get away with, because words down at CPAC, you can stand there and hoop and holler about, sing Lee Greenwood all you want to. Action. We needed action. All right. Here's a little bit of action. This pertains to folks that are on the community, and anybody that is still on Facebook, Twitter, you name the social media. Eventually, somebody is going to hack in and go data mining. RT has a story about Gab. Gab, before there was Parler, Gab was the great free speech alternative to Twitter. I didn't like it. I got on and off pretty quick. But now they are reporting that they were the subject of an SQL or some kind of DDoS hack attack. And these people went in and basically, like Parler, they grabbed everything. And now they're going to start releasing it, WikiLeaks file. So eventually that's going to happen to anything that's connected to the internet. No matter what you do, somebody will find a way in. So when you're posting anywhere online, no matter how private you think it is at this moment, just assume that someday the entire brain-dead, slack-jawed, emotionally driven public will know about it. So if you're telling the truth, the good, the true, and the beautiful, you really don't have anything to worry about eternally. But remember, they out there in the world, they hate you. So the slightest thing, just being on Gab, just having an account, you don't even have to post to it. Having the account that is disapproved of by the SJWs is enough to get you fired these days. My advice is any company that won't do business with you or fires you for being normal, that's a great thing. You got to thank them, because you don't want to work for people that want you dead. You shouldn't have anything to do with them because they're evil. That's all I got for today. I will see you guys back tomorrow on Thursday the 4th. And have a wonderful Wednesday, folks. Stay healthy and, watch all that anti-social media stuff. And poor Joe. We got to think about this. Poor confused Joe.